much, all of you, and truly, it was very emotional watching that tribute. I was fortunate enough to be in his presence when he was here last, and I can testify to his greatness. I'd like to start with you, Professor, because you studied him in great detail, and you know this state and the city of Cuttack so well. What really made him so influential, and what made him such a powerful figure in Indian poetry and Indian writing?
Kaveree, let me begin by saying what a great and extraordinary privilege we have to be given this opportunity, three of us and my very eminent co-panelist, Sampurna ji, to offer our tribute, you said, but I would like to use the word homage, because poetry is a sacred calling. And Kavi, standing for seer in Sanskrit, and Vetis in Latin for prophet. So you asked me this question as to why it is so important. Arguably, I would say, as an academic, as a professor of English literature, I would say that he was truly a genius. And somebody who was, I would say, he was a local cosmopolitan.
Yes.
To use the term used by late Ananthamurthy, you are Ananthamurthy. By that I mean he was not attracted to xenophobic or insular nativism, nor was he attracted to rootless cosmopolitanism. I would say that he was a citizen of the world in the best sense of the term. Now, with regard to language, somebody who came from a small town, and he rubbed shoulders with A.K. Ramanujan, Rita Dove, Dilip Chitre, and those rest of them. I think it was an extraordinary kind of a thing. I think it spoke for the effort that you made and the proposition that if you are outstanding and if you search for excellence, you can reach the stars. I think Jayanta Mahapatra, to my mind, is not one of the best. He's the best Indian English poet to emerge from modern Odisha.
Sampurna, what was it that drew you to his poetry? And I know that you really felt very deeply about his poems. What drew you to it?
You know, the legacy of Jayanta, as we used to call him, is as large, as literally global as Sachi just said, as it is intensely localized on what he could do for young poets starting out. So I have to say that about 20 years ago, when I was just stumbling along trying to figure myself out as a budding poet, it was Jayanta who sent me in his beautiful calligraphy those letters rejecting my work, which I had sent to Chandrabhaga. That was the great gift he gave me. He taught me that time is a co-author for every poet. He gave me the gift of attention, of a careful, close reading by a senior poet, and encouragement. So he said, you know, this is not yet worked, but why don't you send us some more? And I know he's done that for a lot of my peers.
Yeah.
And I think that gift we tend to overlook, especially when in today's day and age it seems very easy to publish poems and we're all very networked. But those days, and I have written about this in my tribute soon after his passing, that it required an investment of genuine time and genuine caring. And I think that was the first level at which my respect took root. And when I studied his work, and you know, just before coming out, this is for everyone in the audience, his collected works are now available. It's a tome. And when you go back to his beginnings, and you see that arc right up to the latest book, there is that constant attention to the craft without ever retreating into a hermetic, you know, into the poetic ivory tower, never. And some of that came across in the video that we just saw. So I think that very, very intelligent and very sensitive balancing act that he was able to do between reality and between the affective reality, where he is obviously very moved by what he is seeing and often torn.
Yeah.
And you know, with that thing about the impassioned opening speech really moved me a lot, because we forget the link between reportage and journalism and stories and the link and the, I think he saw that. He saw that what is happening. He has a very beautiful poem in which he says, newspapers fill me with grief and rage. You know, and all I can do is I wonder, what did I do with my hands? What I did with my hands is I picked up a pen and I wrote. You know, so I feel that's the great thing that I can still learn. I'm still learning from him.
Right. Yes. And also, I think from what I gather, I've been here now for a few years, the act of meeting him was almost like a pilgrimage for a lot of young writers and a lot of young poets. I mean, they would not dream of leaving Odisha without meeting him. And he was always so welcoming, wasn't he?
Kaveree, I think is so insightful. Each of the things that he said and the people who have met him in an incredible manner. Each person has a unique story to
Yes.
tell. When I met him, without drawing too much of attention to myself, may I say, the first book of his, which I reviewed in 1992, it was not signed by him, it was not autographed by him. But the first book, when I met him in 1996, when he came on our promotional tour to Hyderabad, sponsored by the Orient Long Band and now Black Swan, he wrote to Sachidananda Mohanty with my good wishes. Next I met him in Cuttack, he said, to Sachi with love. And most recently, in 2013, when I met him, he said, Sachi, from Jayanta Mahapatra and Runu Mausi.
Wow.
So look at that.
Yeah.
But I think it's more interesting to talk a little more about his craftsmanship,
Yes.
if you allow me. Because I think when we are really celebrating poets and poetry, I think we must do little justice to the art of craftsmanship. And may I say to this learned audience out here, that what I found absolutely incredible and stunning is the self-reflexivity that you have. We have met many poets, and they give poetry reading. But the kind of astute scholarship that he revealed, it really took my breath away. Two examples I will cite. The first is that should poetry mean anything to us? Should there be meanings? So we look for recurrences of metaphors and images and similes, traditionally and conventionally in poetry. There is the opposite viewpoint school of thought represented by Archibald Marklish, typically, which says the poetry should not mean to be. In other words, the cadence, the music, etc. in poetry itself. What does Jayanta Mahapatra say? He said something extraordinary out of the blue. He said, I look at the poem having doors and windows, like Gandhiji said.
Yeah.
That I look at my house having doors and windows, and I would like winds of change to come typically from the outside
Right.
world, but I
But not
refuse to
to
be swept off my
swept
feet.
off.
And that is deeply connected to Hind Swaraj and decolonization of the mind.
Yeah.
Jayanta Mahapatra was a great admirer of Gandhiji. He said, I have windows, my poems have windows, and I invite the reader to enter through the doors and windows and to discover the magic and miracle for the poems and the meanings themselves. In other words, I'm not interested in the meanings. So is it not talking about reader response theory? That each poet, each reader has to really discover things for himself.
Right.
The second thing, very quickly I'll mention, the second notion is the whole idea of desolation, sense of loss, and memory, and he used the word post-memory. Now, memory, of course, is very vital to romantic literature, Wordsworth, Tinton Abbey onwards. But what does he say when he's talking about post-memory? He's talking about ancestral memories, the memories dating back to his grandfather, who was supposed to be converted, he says,
Yes.
to Christianity, and the notion of humiliation that he harbored. So poetry becomes a source of redemption.
Right.
As Meena Alexander says, poetry for psychic survival. So I would say that for him, poetry was a means of redemption by the invocation of memory, and then you have post-memory, and with the help of post-memory, we are trying to really seek identity for yourself. And he said poetry memory is so important because through memory, and that was something, an incredible proposition, he said through memory, we try to really arrange the disparate kind of senses that we have. Something very similar to what I. Richards had said in Sciences and Poetries.
Sampurna, I think poetry to us in our darkest moments is really solace, refuge, a sense of peace, a sense of calm. What what does his poetry do for you?
I was listening also very carefully to what Professor Mohanty was saying, and I think uh, very often, Jayanta, for one, also saw the poem as a person. So not
As
only
okay.
as a person,
Right.
when you read the poems about poetry, for example, which maybe it's only the poets who really gravitate to those poems, but the poem as a wanderer, the poem as a prisoner,
The poem is a man in a
yes,
particular geography.
exactly.
Yeah.
So there is the sense of the poem as being a body, and that body is ravaged. That body could be in ruins. Okay, so I think this idea that the poem will shore up the ruins is very much related to what you're saying about memory. And I keep going back to his words because in the startlement of what he offers us through the way he works the language is where we understand what he's trying to do, because on the surface it's very often they appear very simple.
Yeah.
He seems to be talking to you like in media res, he's just beginning a conversation with you. But actually what he's doing, and he's spoken about this in interviews, that he leaps across time. So he could start with one line, and that line would be now. He has seen something that has shaken him very deeply. And then he leaps back 1,000 years, 500 years. There's this astonishing poem called, I think it's called The Hall of Ruins.
Yeah. Is that about Kalinga, the war?
That's the 20 sequence,
Yeah.
the 20 poem sequence. There is a sense where he is attempting to not provide us solace so much as remind us, I think, that these are the things that we do to ourselves. He's got this astonishing line that I'm trying to find from my little book, where he wrote, "History has no arms; it leaves us to build our snares." So we are building our own snares. And this idea of the poem as documentation is something that I also find very gripping, because often poetry is seen as a sort of self-indulgent art.
Yeah.
But he actually believes that it has a objective reason to exist in this reality. And I think that makes me not just respectful, it makes me think of the multiple ways in which things do happen inside his poems. They could be very small happenings, but things unfold. And if we listen and if we pay attention, like he says, the world means what it means. We don't understand the way it's put together. So he's also factoring in plain human incomprehension. And I think it takes a great deal of courage to do that, to say that I don't have the answers, I'm still looking.
Yeah. Sorry, you had
I would
something.
just add to something very fascinating that Sampurna Ji has just added for to our attention. One is that one is reminded of what T.S. Eliot had said. We have dead words, cliches, and platitudes before us, stale expressions. How do you really infuse newness and novelty? So T.S. Eliot had famously said that the poet infuses new life and oxygen into the language of the tribe. And when you are looking at Jayanta Mahapatra, somebody who did not have the benefit of higher education of the conventional kind, nor was he part of the Oxbridge crowd itself. But when I looked very closely and I interacted with him, and I saw what he was trying to say and tell us is that, how do you handle words? He said, I just play around with the words. I like to really invest new meanings. And as a result of that, something new comes out, and something revelatory, apocalyptic, something really comes out. So that is something extraordinary to see in the case of Jayanta Mahapatra. And just add Wallace Stevens, William Carlos Williams, and Nissim Ezekiel, Adil Jesowala, Many of them were highly privileged. They had
Right.
privileged access to higher education and all that. But Jayanta Mahapatra, self-taught, at the age of 40, he wrote Indian English poetry.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Sivani Review, Hudson Review,
Right.
Poetry Chicago. My God, I think it's mind-boggling what he has been able to achieve. I don't think we have sufficiently understood the greatness and the magnitude of his achievement.
And his worldview, I mean, it was quite an extraordinary worldview as well. Talk a little about that and how it really, yes, please.
Okay, now I think it's a brilliant question that you've asked, and I think very central to the deliberation that we are having itself. One is, of course, local and global at the same time.
Yeah, which is, of course,
Somebody
much
who
touted
talks,
these
and
days.
of course, the documentary and everybody else says, almost in a stereotypical manner, attracted to Mahanadi, to
Yeah.
Kachori, to the temples of Puri, the temples of Konark and all that. But he says in his own autobiography, Pahini Rati, the night is still young, the dawn is not broken. And he says that when he went to Iowa University, Iowa's writing center, and he goes to these places without any, without application. He's invited there. But the crucial and the relevant thing, Kaveree, is that he's not able to write anything there. He's not able to write anything in Tokyo. But he produces incredible and marvelous poems here itself. So closeness to the soil and rootedness, while you are exposed to the best of the poetry and the poetic tradition, that is something unique to Jayanta Mahapatra.
Time for us to hear some of his poetry
you know,
as well.
but quickly before, I want to just jump in a little bit here, is that Jayanta had this gift also of, as we saw also on that, he has a brilliant line, he says, yet I only know this word which lets me survive inside. This liberal ethic is one long error of inexperience. Who am I to play God with good intentions? He was, I think, always his own critic. He was like, I'm going to do this. People are going to read me and perhaps even put me on a pedestal. I don't belong on that pedestal. He was very, very, very sure about it. I get that feeling. Who am I to play God with good intentions, And I think, we should read some of his poems.
Yeah, I just add a footnote if you permit me.
Sure.
See, when I was in Hyderabad and he was invited, taken from place to place, I could see that he was completely fed up. People asked me, how do you write?
Sure.
He said, well, something which comes to my mind. Have you read any great masters? Well, I haven't read anything. And in Osmania University, over breakfast, he told me, I was not interested in those promotional tours.
Right.
And yet, you see, he's read Wallace Stevens, he's read, Nissim Ezekiel, Adil Jasowala, A.K. Ramanujan, the best of the poets. So I think the poet needs to be treated with a degree of sensitivity. And the poet like Jayanta Mahapatra, he was not interested in commercialism. He was truly, to my mind, a genuine poet.
And he wanted to be read rather than feted, right? I think that is what every writer needs.
So if you allow us,
Yes,
Sampurna
please.
beginning, we'll read out.
And also, I think we should emphasize that we are lucky enough to have his last work with us.
I've got it in my hand. I'm not letting it go. There's only one copy in the room at the moment. Here it is.
It's his last work, which
And
we were
it's
fortunate to get.
brought out by the Ketki Foundation.
Yes.
And as I said before, his collected works, which is a tome, is out there. And I want to begin, because we've been asked to read 2 poems, I'd like to read both mine, one after the other. First one is really, I would like to offer it as a homage to Jayanta, because I think so much of what he offered us was camaraderies. So this is a poem that's a poem of mine that I offer to his memory, to the legacy that he left for us. Camaraderies. This is not false. Springing all about me this forgotten joy. The first deluge of the season, unleashing unreasonable gaiety, everyone voluble, bizarre camaraderies at the liquor store, little wayward boats, school kids streaming back home. Inside, We are safe, warm, dry. We have looked out for each other, called, warned, delighted in this unforeseen event that has allowed us to stay close, clink glasses, read under bright yellow lamps overflowing. And I think because so much of Jayantada's his poems have rain in them. And I picked this poem as I landed in Bhubaneswar.
And
It started raining, and I said, I have to read a poem of mine which has rain and offer it to this presence that we have. And this one that I'm going to read is the last three stanzas from a longer poem called Hesitant Light by Jayanta Mahapatra. Where we go is important. Life's choices are few. When someone passes on outward into thought, perhaps growing smaller, lies buried in this earth, the rise and fold of hills, the outcrops of rock, the stone skin of ancient walls, that shelter the faraway footfalls of secret hierarchies. Above the ruin of days, another December dawn crawls along the ground in its hesitant light, but swift and hidden, to be imprisoned by this thing that was like a door that had no walls behind it, and still held on to the inconceivable breadth of the world, its sweetness, its treasures, its ends, and its endlessness.
Thank you. That was quite marvelous.
Thank you,
From you,
Kaveree. I just
Before we
read two
end,
poems
yes.
and a short extract in Odia,
Yeah.
because he started writing poetry in Odia
Yeah.
30 years after he did that.
Right.
And the first English poem was published in 1967. The title is Evening Ritual, and it's so important because I was a Vice Chancellor in Koraput, Central University of Koraput. After a visit to Koraput village, somewhere there are these barren hills which no one climbs. Somewhere too, a funeral group waits patiently in a jungle clearing. For the body which will not return to ash somewhere, there is an evening treating underfoot the sleeping village in its mud-caked breath, while old fireflies only lit in the sprawling darkness once again. Mean of me, how realized to come into the light of the old man's lamp and point out the moon-washed peaks revealed in his daughter's mirror, full of his tears, the look of a woman's limbs quickening inside her as I tie her up in the long heaps of mandia, the tenderness and ochre of a land bound together with the bodies of crates and cobras. And I come to the last stanza. The last time I know, I took what I could see. Now perhaps I'll wait for morning, my sleep nourished from people who had caught the moon in their tears, the shadow thick with the ashes of burned stars. Somewhere August will be August still, and over the hills will float poets' dead words, and I shall forgive myself this, for I am only a man. One more poem, and I will end. The next is from Shadow Space. It's a collection called Shadow Space. We refer to Living in Orissa. The title of the poem appropriately is called Living in Orissa. Living in Orissa. Something here, perhaps a fatal spirit, something that recalls centuries of defeat. Defeat? Kalinga War? Mahabharata? The memories of defeat, the memories of glory, they come together in his poems. Ought to live here, untold in sickness and disease, in the past of uncomprehended totems and the split of blood of ancestors, one would wear like an amulet today the darkness of our own shadows, slips over the uncared for cemeteries by the river. Someone keeps walking down still, across the ravenous dust, between the graves, waiting like an ancient dead. Someone goes on dancing at the door of indifferent temples, carrying pain in an eyeless face. Only shadows shift now. They have the eyes of defeated spirits, the old, old eyes. I'll skip the next poem due to lack of time and allow me to end this his poetry in Odia. The language that he loved so much.
Right.
And he said, I want our own people to read, not in a chauvinistic sense, but in an egalitarian sense, which only the best poet can really hope to match. Allow me to read from Bahini Rati, part memoir, but part poetry also. As you're going through this memoir, each line is a verse.
Right.
Each line is so extraordinarily insightful, and it makes you stand and take notice. I just read an extract. दुनियार बही समस्तଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଭିନ୍ନ ଭିନ୍ନ ମୋ ଦୁନିଆର ବହିରେ ଘାସ ପଡ଼ିଆର ଚିତ୍ର ଥାଏ ନଦୀଟିଏ ବୋହି ଯାଇଥାଏ ସାହାଡ଼ ଗଛର ଘଞ୍ଚ ପତର ଭିତର ଦେଇ ସୂର୍ଯ୍ୟ ପଶିଯାଏ କିନ୍ତୁ ଅଳ୍ପ ସମୟ ପରେ ବାହାରିଯାଏ ଏ ବହିକୁ ପଢ଼ିବା ପାଇଁ ଚେଷ୍ଟା କରେ ଆଉ ପଢ଼େ କିନ୍ତୁ ଶେଷ ହୁଏ ନାହିଁ ପଢ଼ା ଅର୍ଥ ଖୋଜି ବାହାର କରିବା ଉଚିତ ବୋଲି ମୁଁ ମନେ କରେ ନାହିଁ ଏମିତି ସୁନ୍ଦର ଦୁନିଆରେ ଅର୍ଥ ଖୋଜିବାରେ ଲାଭ ଅଛି ଯେଉଁ ଦୁନିଆରେ ସ୍ୱପ୍ନର ଗୁଣ ଅଛି ପିଲାବେଳୁ ନିଜ ନିଜ ଦୁନିଆ ଆମେ ତିଆରି କରୁ ଆମର ପରିସ୍ଥିତି ଆମ ଅବସ୍ଥା ଏ ଦୁନିଆର ପୋଷଣ କରୁଥାଏ କେବେ 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 ମୋ ଦୁନିଆର ଇତିହାସ ଗୋଟିଏ ହୋଇଯାଏ ଯେଉଁ ଇତିହାସ ଭୁଲିପାରେ ନାହିଁ ମୁଁ ମୋ ପରିବାରର ଇତିହାସ ମୋ ଅନୁତପ୍ତ ଓଡ଼ିଶାର ଇତିହାସ ଯେଉଁଠି କିଛି ମନୋଯୋଗୀ କଥା ହୁଏ ନାହିଁ ଯେଉଁଠି ବଞ୍ଚିବାକୁ ପଡ଼େ ଗୋଟିଏ ବନ୍ଧ ଦୁନିଆରେ ଯେଉଁଠି ଜହ୍ନର ସ୍ୱଚ୍ଛ ଆଲୁଅ କେବଳ ଦେଖେଇପାରେ ସ୍ୱପ୍ନ ଗୋଟିଏ ଅସରନ୍ତି ସ୍ୱପ୍ନର ଦେଶକୁ ଭଲ ପାଇବାର ସ୍ୱପ୍ନ ଯେଉଁ ସ୍ୱପ୍ନ ଇତିହାସ ବହିରେ ଯୁଗ ଯୁଗ ରହି ଆଜି ଥରୁଥାଏ କମ୍ପୁଥାଏ ତାପରେ ଫାଟି ଟୁକୁରା ଟୁକୁରା ହୋଇ ଭାଙ୍ଗିଯାଏ ରଙ୍ଗ ଓ ଆଲୁଅରେ ସେଇଠି ମୋ ପରି ଲୋକ ବଞ୍ଚିବାକୁ ଚେଷ୍ଟା କରେ ଯେଉଁ ଲୋକଟି ଅନ୍ୟମାନଙ୍କୁ ଦେଖାଯାଏ ନାହିଁ ଅଦୃଶ୍ୟ ଥାଏ ଆକାର ବା ଆତ୍ମା ବିନା ବୁଲୁଥାଏ ସେଇ ଲୁଚିବାର ନିରବତାର କାଗଜ ମାନଙ୍କରେ ସେତିକି ବୋଧିଆ ମୋ ଦୁନିଆ ସେତିକି ଥ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ୟୁ
Thank you so much, both of you. It was like a master class, and I think wherever he is, he must be happy.
You made it possible.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.